I've been a member of Kubo's official fan club Club Outside ever since it launched way back in January of 2021. Because I'm an elite member, I have access to over 690 questions that Kubo has answered from fans. Members of Club Outside have the option to ask Kubo whatever they want, and each week he selects 3 questions from a list of submissions which he answers. Some of these questions reveal unanswered details about the Bleach lore, and these questions are of varying importance. There might be questions here which are related to Ichigo's powers, but then you may have pointless questions like what underwear do the Vizards wear in the world of the living? In this video, I'm going to be sharing the perks of my elite membership of Club Outside with all of you as we dive into some fascinating new pieces of information like Kubo revealing details about Ichigo's potential to holofy. We are also going to be talking about the only ever question which was deleted from Club Outside, and it's about the origin of Yhwach's name. Be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll also be revealing information about how the Arrancar acquire their Zanpakuto. So without further delay, let's begin my video covering the massive library of questions which have been answered by Kubo on his official fan club. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Holo Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. The translations to these questions that I'm covering have been provided by Reiko Run on Tumblr, who I think does the best job at accurately translating the Club Outside content. So the first question that we'll be looking at is question 578, and a fan asks that in the scene where Ichigo is taught the final Getsuga Tensho by Tensa Zangetsu, Ichigo is told, "You feared taking on this form in which your mind is suppressed by your own destructive impulses, and as a result you've even become incapable of properly holofying." However, if Ichigo was to properly holofy, would he have been able to manifest the mask with horns that had covered his entire face as shown in the battle against Ukiura? So this is in reference to his holification form or his Vasto Lore transformation. Kubo answers that if Ichigo were to properly holofy, then he would have taken on that form. So Ichigo's fear of using his holification powers had stemmed from that Vasto Lore transformation, which is why his holo mask had taken on a different appearance following his battle with Ukiura. When Ichigo returns from the Canopy of Las Noches, Rukia notes that his eyes appear to be very different, and they don't appear to be the eyes of a victor. Ichigo immediately confronts Yami, who is in his Resurrection form, and he immediately uses his holo mask, and we see that his mask has taken on a very different appearance as he has 2 black lines running down either side of it. Rukia comments upon the new appearance of Ichigo's holo mask, as she notes that it seems to be different. She is aware that his mask does slowly change over time, but this time the pattern was completely different than before. Even Ichigo notes that there is some strange sensation as the holification doesn't appear to be right, saying that the mask that he had just donned had felt way too heavy. He then thinks back to his Vasto Lore transformation, and he wonders whether if something about his holification had changed because of that form. Kubo here drops hints of Ichigo being incapable of properly holofying, and this is further elaborated upon in chapter 388 when Ichigo arrives within Fate Karakura town, and he has a chance to surprise attack Aizen from behind with a Getsuga Tensho, but Aizen reveals that he already had measures in place in order to protect the back of his neck, which he describes as being every creature's worst blind spot. So for that reason, he already had something in place to protect him. In this moment, Ichigo thinks to himself that he has blown it because a part of him was afraid that he would mess up his holification. So in that split second when he had arrived, he had decided not to holofy. Aizen, being as smug as ever, predicts what Ichigo must be thinking, as he comments on how Ichigo had wasted his first attack, revealing to him that he should have attacked him while he was holified, because even one strike may have been enough to finish him off as long as he was in his holified form. In retaliation, Ichigo immediately activates his Hollow Mask and it takes on that same appearance as before with those two black lines. He fires the Getsuga Tensho, which Aizen easily avoids, but when Aizen comments upon Ichigo's fear of closing the distance with him, Ichigo's Hollow Mask immediately begins to be undone only moments after it was activated. This once again hints at this fear that Ichigo has to tap into this aspect of his power. The final time that Ichigo uses his Hollow Mask within the story is actually in chapter 404. He dons the Hollow Mask during his battle against Gin when he avoids the rapid release of his Zanpakuto Kamishini no Yari. Again, his Hollow Mask takes on that very different appearance with those two black stripes. Previously, Ichigo's Hollow Mask had red stripes and they were growing in number. The final time that we had seen Ichigo's Hollow Mask with those red stripes was in chapter 344 during his battle with Ulquiorra, where there were 9 red stripes all over the right side of the mask. While Ichigo's Vaster Lorde form was first revealed in chapter 350, we did in fact get a preview glimpse of the Hollow Mask for a manga color spread that Kubo had drawn for chapter 289. Now for this color spread, we see Ichigo's face split into 4 compartments. On the right side, we see Ichigo's normal face, which represents his human side, and then we have Hollow Ichigo on the bottom right. Now the left side is what is fascinating. On the bottom left, we of course have him in his Shinigami Shihakusho, and in the top left, we have this preview glimpse of the Vaster Lorde form with this skull which takes on a very similar appearance, but there are a few notable differences. The pattern on this color manga spread appears to take on more of a tribal tattoo design, while in chapter 350 we see Ichigo's Hollow Mask with those 2 black stripes running down it. Then there are also these 2 triangular points on the forehead of the mask. For the cover art for chapter 289, it appears as though Kubo has drawn the skeletal skull of this holified form that we see in chapter 350. So every time that Ichigo donned his Hollow Mask after the Vaster Lorde transformation, it was as a result of him being incapable of properly holifying. We see an example of how Ichigo's appearance would be if he were to be able to properly holify in chapter 410 when Hollow Ichigo appears in front of him, but you'll notice that his coloring is entirely inverted. Where Ichigo's Hollow Mask was black, Hollow Ichigo's appears to be white, and where his mask is white, Hollow Ichigo's is black. And the same is true for his Shinigami Shihakusho, which highlights that Hollow Ichigo is a complete inversion of Ichigo himself. So this new form that Hollow Ichigo takes on, he notably has much longer hair. Similar to the hair length that Ichigo had in his Vaster Lorde form, his hands and his feet have also altered in appearance. And of course, he's wearing that Hollow Mask with the horns that cover his entire face. Ichigo asks him what's with that outfit and the weird mask that he is wearing. Tensa Zangetsu states that he has never seen this form before, as he reveals to him that this is the appearance that he had taken on when he had defeated Ulquiorra, and this is the form that Ichigo fears, stating that you fear taking on this form, which occurs when your mind is suppressed by your own destructive impulses. As a result, you've become incapable of properly holifying. Now, what is unfortunate is that Ichigo is in his inner world here for the purposes of learning the final Getsuga Tensho. If this wasn't the case, then I believe that Ichigo would have conquered his inner hollow once again and overcome that fear of holifying. And it's not that his entire body would have been altered, because that form that he had taken on when he had battled Ulquiorra was in fact a complete holification. The only similar thing that I can describe this to is Tozen's complete holification form, but in that example, Tozen had complete control over his body, even after it had altered in appearance. Ichigo's holification during his battle with Ulquiorra is as a result of him dying and his inner hollow having taken over his body as a consequence of this. And this is what results in this instinct-driven beast which he becomes. A completed, proper holification is seen within chapter 215 when we see Hiyori donning her hollow mask. Now you'll note that her mask appears to have a horn, and she also has a pattern across the top of her hollow mask which is red in color. All of the Vizards are able to properly holify and their masks take on very unique appearances. And from this answer, it's revealed that every time Ichigo had in fact used his hollow mask in the series, it was an improper holification, and according to Kubo here, if he were to have accepted that side of his powers and if he were to have properly holified, then his mask would have taken on that horned appearance that we had seen when he had transformed into his Vaster Lorde form. This is because this form originates from the hollow white which had attacked Ichigo's mother, and that Hello of course also had a horned appearance. So yeah, just from this simple answer that Kubo had given, there's a lot that we can imply about Ichigo's holofication, as well as the nature of his holomask and its true final form. Now question 167 is really interesting because this is the one and only question which has ever been removed from Club Outside. So the fan had asked Kubo that this is a question regarding the origins of the name Yhwach in the original work. The fan asks whether if the name of Yhwach has roots in the monotheistic god of Judaism and Christianity who is referred to as Yahweh or Jehovah. Kubo reveals that originally Yhwach's name was supposed to be spelled exactly like the monotheistic god of Judaism and Christianity, but Kubo was asked to change this by the Shonen Jump editorial department because this would have 100% caused controversy overseas. So this is why his name is spelled in the way that it is with the YHWACH spelling. I don't know exactly when this was changed, but this question was deleted from Club Outside and instead replaced with this all new question where a fan asks Kubo about the status of the Shinigami Men's Association and whether if it has improved thanks to its president Iba becoming a captain. So while fans for years had speculated about the origin of Yhwach's name and its link to Jehovah, but the fact that Yhwach is an authoritarian leader and a main villain of Bleach's final arc, who also leads a military army, linking this character to the god of Judaism would have been very controversial, and for Kubo to confirm this in one of his questions on Club Outside, I think that it's for this reason that this question was altered and deleted from the website, as this information may have sparked negative responses from religious groups who might have deemed it to be disrespectful or insensitive to the origins of the name. And also when you consider the fact that he has godlike omniscient power with the Almighty as his shrift, there are quite a lot of similarities here. Also, I think that a situation recently with My Hero Academia may have resulted in this question being deleted from the fan club. This is when the character Dr. Daruma Ujiko's full name was revealed to be Maruta Shiga. Now the term Maruta refers to victims of human experimentation by the Japanese military during World War II. So the term is actually used to describe atrocities which were committed against Korean and Chinese prisoners. The use of the term Maruta had led to intense backlash, which had led to Kohei Horikoshi changing the name and issuing an apology. So yeah, while Yhwach's name was originally changed by the editorial department, this question revealing that the change had happened ended up being deleted, I think because of this latest My Hero Academia controversy. Shueisha and the respective authors that work for the publication company don't want to appear to be insensitive, so naming villains after real-life historical or religious figures is something that they have gradually learned to avoid in order to not alienate or offend fans who have connections to these names. So the next question that I want to talk about is the upper limit of membership within the Zero Division. The fan asks that the members of the Zero Division are each given one of the 5 cities within the Royal Palace, but if the number of the Zero Division members increases, will a new city need to be added to the Royal Palace, or is the maximum capacity for membership limited to 5 individuals, which is in accordance to the 5 disc-like structures floating around the Greater Soul King's palace. So Kubo here confirms that only 5 people can be a part of the Zero Division at any given time. Each of these cities that these Zero Division members reside within represents their strength as well as their contributions to the Soul Society. The limitation of there only being 5 members for the Zero Division highlights the importance of being a part of this group, as well as the fact that being a member of the Zero Division is a rare honor and a responsibility which is linked to the foundational history of the Soul Society. Within Tenjiro Karinji City there are multiple buildings, with the main one being his palace called Kirindan, where there is a massive underground space that is filled with healing hot springs. Similarly, Nimaya City is made up of several buildings, with the main one being called Hoden. It's a small, humble shack located on the edge of a cliff. This is where he does the forging of Zanpakuto, but he also has a separate, larger building called Galaxy Hoden, which is filled with several women who are in fact Zanpakuto spirits, and he mainly uses the Galaxy Hoden for leisure and entertainment. Now, Kiryu Hikifune's palace within her city is called Gatonden, and this is a large area which she uses to prepare food as well as to host meals for her guests. Then we have Ichibe's city, where the main building is called the Wooden Floor, and this is a training dojo where we see Renji, Rukia and Ichigo train within. The reishi within Ichibe's city is very dense, so individuals who are weaker and are not used to such dense reishi will most likely be unable to move or breathe properly within a city. And the last city belongs to Senjumaru, and this city we know the least information about because we've only really seen one area of it, and it's this room which is covered in several different clothing fabrics, and Senjumaru uses the room in order to take measurements of individuals as she creates oken clothing for them here. So while most of the cities of the Zero Division members are made up of several different buildings, it seems like the main difference between each floating city is the palace, which is the central building, which is designed and created in order to reflect the contributions and skills of that Zero Division member. So the final question that I'll be talking about is in relation to the Zanpakuto that are acquired by the Arrancar. In question 535 asked on Kubo's fan club, a fan asks, how do Arrancar acquire a Zanpakuto? Do their broken mask pieces transform into Zanpakuto after they become Arrancar? Now, Kubo here states that he is going to reveal the answer because he doesn't feel like drawing it in any future installment of the series, as he reveals that the torn part of the mask becomes the sword. So yes, the fan here is correct in assuming that the broken part that is removed from the mask becomes the Arrancar sword, which explains why Arrancar have broken, fragmented hollow masks on their bodies. Within the Unmasked databook, Arrancar are described as being hollows which have gained similar powers to a Shinigami thanks to them removing their hollow masks. Now, hollows that are turned into Arrancars by using the Hokyoku possess greater power beyond those of naturally formed Arrancar. There are some exceptions to this, like Coyote Stark and Ukiura Shifa, who appear to have become Arrancars before the Hokyoku was used. So in essence, they are naturally occurring Arrancar. So the Hokyoku instead had mainly empowered them to make them stronger instead of causing the transformation. Now we learned that hollows have different classes, including Gillian, Adhuchas and Vastolore. Now for an average hollow to remove their hollow mask is not much of a problem for the Gotei 13 to handle, but it becomes an issue when hollows ranked Gillian or higher become Arrancar. The difference between an Arrancar Zanpakuto and a Shinigami Zanpakuto is that a Shinigami acquires a Zanpakuto after developing their spiritual powers, but in contrast, an Arrancar Zanpakuto is made directly from their previous hollow form. So the source of their abilities in their hollow form becomes the Zanpakuto that they wield. When an Arrancar releases their Zanpakuto, which is referred to as their resurrection, they regain some aspects of their original hollow form, as well as the powers that they possessed in that form. So in a way, they are resurrecting their previous hollow form, allowing them to utilize their hollow abilities but in this evolved new body. While Arrancars are hollows who have gained powers similar to those of Shinigami, they still refer to themselves as hollows. So in this video, we've discussed several questions, from the origin of Yhwach's name to the nature of Ichigo's hollow mask, as well as the membership limitations of the Zero Division, and lastly, the nature of an Arrancar's Zanpakuto. There are still so many different questions for us to dive into in relation to Ichigo's powers, the Arrancar, the Quincy, Fullbringers, and so many different Bleach subjects, so definitely do subscribe to the channel and stick around, as I'll be making way more Club Outside videos just like this one, where we analyze and break down the hundreds of questions that Kubo has answered from fans. If you've enjoyed this video, then let me know in the comments. I would love to know all of your feedback. Was there anything new about Bleach that you've learnt from these questions that have been answered by Kubo? And if there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about these 4 questions in this video, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.